How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here and welcome to today's video on the main battle tank 70. We're going to have a look at this new Era 3 premium tank and discuss whether Wargaming keep pushing out these premium tanks that are just a little bit too power creepy, and this one is certainly no different. This one is just utterly bonkers within World of Tanks Update 7.2. It gets to go basically the same speed backwards as you can go forwards. Yes, that's completely correct. You can go just as fast backwards, and in fact, in most cases, you can actually go faster backwards in a tank like this. It's like playing a French tank in real life, but on a video game. Yeah. Let's have a look at this tank in-game. Let's see how it plays. Let's get into a gameplay. I'm going to discuss all about it. It will set you back, I think, 18,000 gold if you want to purchase it right now, or alternatively 15,000 gold if you want to purchase it right now, but not the upgraded version of it. So yeah, still setting you back, what, like £45? That's more than the majority of games that you can purchase on World of Tanks, on Xbox and PlayStation. You will literally spend more on one tank, and is this really worth it? Well, I guess this video is trying to tell you that it may be, but not really. Yeah, essentially this tank is not particularly the best that you'll probably ever see in World of Tanks. It's not necessarily the most overpowered tank that you'll ever play. Certainly doesn't have the best armor that you'll ever be using within the game. I've played, I think at this time, 2 games. Yeah, it's one of those that's just kind of average, but it certainly packs out that damage really, really nicely, and the speed at which you can do it, as well as the actual speed of the tank, make it somewhat better when you're playing against those players. Obviously, however, it is in Cold War, and I guess that we'll have to talk about Update 7.2 if we're going to actually look at this game itself. Yes, you can still play the new maps within the Cold War game mode, being Dukla Pass, and I think you can play Redshire. No, you can't. I don't think you can play Redshire. I think it's the other one, Muravanka, that you might be able to actually play. Can't remember entirely. Essentially, you can play 2 of the 4 new revamped maps that were released back in Cold War, so it's made the map rotation slightly better. So if you're thinking about actually jumping into Cold War, which I probably wouldn't really recommend, since, you know, myself, I haven't even played it that much, and yes, you have stupidly long queues, and you'll probably just be seeing matchups of MBT 70s eventually when you get up to Era 3, when these premium tanks get released. 100% be expecting another Era 3 premium tank to be released sometime soon. That will just basically be the counterpart of this, but for the Russian line, probably better. You know how it goes with Wargaming. But essentially what this tank is it's kind of like a medium tank that has this 780 alpha damage. It can go 60 kilometers an hour forward, but yeah, you're probably not going to be doing that consistently, because the kind of terrain resistances aren't particularly the best in the game, and yeah, it definitely feels a little bit tedious from time to time. Unfortunately, my microphone was actually in the way of that, so that's always fun. But yeah, I don't think that you'll particularly be having the most amazing games in this. It's probably no T72BU that you can pick up from the tech tree. But yeah, it's probably better than the M1A1, so I take that into account when you're thinking about playing Cold War, and when you're thinking about maybe purchasing a tank like this for £45 that I would never ever really recommend ever, unless you really do feel like you want it that bad. But yeah, that's kind of up to you to make your own opinion as to whether or not you want to purchase it for that much. But I just don't think that any tank is really worth it ever. Anyway, premium tank balance. Is it actually balanced that Wargaming keep releasing them? Well, I don't think it really is. I just don't think that they should be putting so much like development time into these new Cold War vehicles. I think that there's been already so much development into them that you just don't really need anymore. At least in terms of the heavy tanks. They seem to release basically just a reskinned version of the tank that are already in the game, meaning that it's almost like pointless that they even introduce it. It's nothing really new. People that actually have spent time in the game and are going to be spending money in the game have probably already got the tank that like you're basically basing it off, so there's not really much point in terms of that. Yeah, I not really a massive fan of just reskinning these tanks and calling them new, because they're not, are they? Anyway, without just badgering Wargaming and saying that it's just an absolute nightmare, I think we should really talk about the tank itself and how well it actually plays in the game. I think that you'll be seeing a lot of these coming out of the woodwork in a couple of days. I especially think with the silver earning potential that these tanks have, you'll definitely be seeing them cropping up a lot more. Unfortunately, you do not have the best penetration in this tank, and if you want to have that kind of ridiculous games, you probably are going to be bouncing a lot. As you can see with me right here, we are just continuously bouncing off of the opponents that we're trying to hit, which is really annoying, and certainly like the downfall of this tank if you are going to play it. It's definitely those tank rounds and just not being able to really compete with the opponents. And certainly if you think that this is going to be just flat out overpowered, then usually you'd be right, but unfortunately with this one you would definitely be wrong. It just doesn't have the pack-a-punch that you're probably expecting with some of these tanks that you usually see on the game. Yeah, so we've picked up 4,000 damage. You know, that's pretty shocking, to be honest with you, for the Cold War game mode. You know, at Era 3, essentially, you probably want to be looking at about 5,000 damage per game. Don't know how well you're likely to get that. I don't know. I don't play Cold War enough, but I know that that's kind of the damage that you'll probably be looking if you think that you're having an okay game. Yeah, I think it's always interesting to talk about these kind of things, because at the end of the day they are important to be looking at and kind of thinking about when you're deciding whether or not to drop some money on the game. And I think that Wargaming's mentality with these tanks is just, well, make them try and look like they're actually that interesting, and basically make them the proper silver earners that you don't really see within World of Tanks that often, or at least within World of Tanks for the majority. I genuinely don't know the last time I played a World War II tank with the actual aim of earning some silver, because there's just really no benefit anymore to doing that. I just think that you're better off actually just playing some of the other tanks in Cold War. If you do have the Mobat or something like that, play a couple of games in that. Even if you don't enjoy it, still better than grinding your way through a load of the tank lines and stuff like that within the game. Yeah, I think that, you know, you can see how well this tank plays within the game. I don't think it's going to be a game breaker. You certainly don't have the penetration that makes it a real game breaker, and you're probably not going to be seeing all that much damage being dished out from this point onwards in this game. But maybe, just maybe, we'll pick up another couple of damaging shells before we get taken out. And of course, as with Wargaming's typical, you know, we bounce, or the reticle that usually shows decided that it's not going to actually have fun today, and yeah, we're probably going to get stumped now. Yeah. Luckily we got one more damaging shot. Pretty average game, 5,500 damage in a Cold War tier 3. Yeah, not particularly that great. I think today we'll also look through the updated bundles as well that come into the store and give a kind of unbiased opinion on the tank. Of course, you could see even when we lost, we made 381,000 silver for a particularly average game. Really decent one. Certainly a tank that I would get if I really needed silver and I had no other option, and if I was going to spend money on silver, it would be better to purchase this. But realistically, don't go spending £45 on the game unless you really have to. I would much rather, especially if you have the money, spend it on things like premium time, spend it on things like the World War II vehicles, because you can get multiple of them. And essentially they are more fun to actually play 3 different tanks than just one. And I don't think that this vehicle is particularly that interesting for the majority of you. Yes, it is kind of novel with the fact that it can go just as fast forward as it can backwards. But for the most part, I don't think you're going to be that interested in it. It's certainly not game breaking, but it is definitely silver breaking, and you'll be earning a shockingly disgusting amount of silver if you play a couple of games in this, especially with the ×2 silver boost that you can put on a tank like this. So there we go, the MBT 70. Is it worth it? Well, I don't know. I think it's kind of one of those things that you just have to take at face value. Are you going to spend the money on it? Or are you just going to kind of waffle through and just try and get some other kind of free tanks eventually? Yeah, I think that will kind of come within the game and with the season pass, and I think now is a great time to be talking about the next season, what's coming with that, and all of the information regarding that. Obviously, for those of you that have somewhat of a brain, you can see that the majority of the on-screen text when we jump into the game is all Halloween themed. Halloween's coming up soon. This next season is becoming or starting before Halloween. Are we likely to see some sort of Halloween themed tanks within it? Well, yeah, probably. Let's not beat around the bush. We're probably going to see tanks like the Wraith. We're also getting the Monster Hunter Urnop coming into the game very, very soon that you'll be able to complete. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it is essentially where you can get another free premium tank that is a Monster Hunter, and that involves things like the Kaiju, the tier 6 premium OI essentially is what it is, and then you get things like the Wraith, the Panzer 58 Mutz, I think it is. Then you get the there's quite a few other ones. I always forget them off the top of my head, but there's loads, and I'm sure many of you will comment in the comment section down below as to what the Monster Hunter tanks are. You have things like the Lycan as well. You've got loads of them. There are genuinely so many. I think there's about 7 or 8 now. But yeah, certainly tanks that are interesting to play, and when you actually play during Halloween, they get some special themed cosmetic stuff happen to them where they like start glowing and all of this sort of fancy jazz. And usually there's a game mode that's called Monster Hunter where you can actually jump into the game in those tanks, and they have like special attributes where the Lycan may be faster, it's even faster than normal, and then you've got things like the tank might be able to have this like super one-shotty gun. I can't remember exactly, but essentially they all have some sort of special attribute when you play them within the game, and it's always fun to have a go at and play in the game. I don't know what that guy was doing, but oh my word. He obviously tried to lose the majority of his hit points, although he did actually stump me for 1500, which is pretty annoying. He must have fired a missile or something. Anyway, without further ado, let's carry on with the gameplay and carry on with our discussion as to the new season. What do you actually think it will be? Because it's kind of up in the air right now. Do we know anything about it? Well, no, not particularly. We literally have no idea. It could be anything. I think what I'd like to see is more historically based updates coming in the future, you know, looking at actually creating seasons that are maybe as you'd like, maybe having things like Operation Market Garden, maybe you call a season that, then you give some sort of special tank that is themed around the whole Operation Market Garden as the season pass tanks, and then you give them some extra stuff that is all historically based. Give them skins that have a historical context, things that were realistic. I think that would also be a nice, interesting dynamic within the game that we don't currently see, because yes, we do have historically accurate tanks, or at least somewhat anyway, like things like the Tiger II, stuff like that. Obviously we have them in the game. Are they necessarily 100% historically accurate? Well, no, because realistically any tank within this game is not really historically accurate, because they would be one shot if they actually got hit and penned, but obviously for playable reasons that doesn't happen, and if you want to play a game like that, then I would recommend War Thunder. It's done it very well. I think that is actually a game that I've enjoyed recently playing on PC, and if you want to see any videos on that, then I do have them on my second channel should you want to actually look at those. Obviously it's completely down to you. I'm not going to force you to watch any of those, but it does showcase the game itself on one of the more realistic simulator sort of stuff within the tank realm or tank game realm. So yeah, definitely interesting. Is it necessarily a tank game that everyone will like? Well, probably not, because yes, you do get one shot if you do take a hit, and you do get punished for it. Yeah, you're going to be taking a full-on hit, and you're going to be taken out of the game, and then you'll have to start again. If you've ever played Search and Destroy on Call of Duty, you'll know exactly what I mean. It is literally one shot, and then you're out. And then you have to play a different tank, and then yeah, you have the choice of like 3 tanks. It's been interesting to play. Don't know if I'll continue to make loads of videos on it, but essentially it'll be as and when I feel like it, and hopefully you guys do enjoy them. They're mainly just compilations of just funny moments and stuff like that, and trust me, the game has a lot of funny moments because it's a bit more simulatory than a lot of the World of Tanks sort of thing, where it's more arcade, and you have just constant kind of I don't know, it's just like cartoony, isn't it, on World of Tanks, if you think about it in terms of realistic. Yeah, it's not particularly that fun. I don't know what this guy's doing, but yeah, he took me out. There we go, the tank. Anyway, we've waffled far along and enough on this tank. What is my overall recommendation for the MBT-70? It's not particularly very good. Is it even worth picking up for £45? Probably not. Is it worth it if you already have a premium tank? Probably not. Is it worth it if you don't have a premium Cold War vehicle and you're not likely to get another one anytime soon? Maybe. And you really do want to earn silver. Let's put that extra caveat in there, because if you don't really want to earn silver, then there's no real point in playing any of these, because you could just grind up the tech tree and get to a better tank at the end of it. So there we go. That is the MBT-70. Done and dusted. Wargaming's finally created a balanced Cold War vehicle. Yes, no one thought that that could be possible, but they've only gone and bloody done it. And yeah, let's see how well it faces. We haven't seen the second era premium tank, so I'm sure that that will be much more overpowered, and you'll probably see the same thing that we had with the Armadillo. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope you did enjoy this video, and if you want to check out more videos, then you can have a look on screen right now. And yeah, thanks once again. Hope to see you in one of those, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.